The San Antonio Spurs just dished out a massive amount of money to De'Aaron Fox after they signed him to a 4-year extension worth $229 million, a contract which levels out to around $55 million per year and which actually increases in value as it ages, starting from $51 million in 2026 to 2027 up to more than $63 million during the final season of the contract in 2029 to 2030. Overall, this extension now ranks De'Aaron Fox as the 5th highest paid active NBA player in terms of average annual earnings, but more importantly, in the bigger picture, this deal also commits around 30% of the San Antonio Spurs cap space to Fox over the next 5 years. Well, sure, the inflated league-wide salaries can actually exaggerate how highly paid a player looks like in today's NBA, but the San Antonio Spurs will still definitely expect a lot from De'Aaron Fox over the next 5 seasons, where he will be trusted to act as a star-caliber point guard who will be Victor Wembanyama's co-star at the same time. So in this video, let's talk about the biggest questions surrounding De'Aaron Fox's extension and why the rest of the NBA should be terrified of the Victor Wembanyama and De'Aaron Fox era in San Antonio. So let's get to it. Obviously, De'Aaron Fox is a hyper-athletic guard who's a career 21-point-per-game scorer and whose defensive capabilities were generally underplayed due to the fact that he played as part of a weak defensive infrastructure in Sacramento for 8 long years. Still, this early, a lot of analysts have already been criticizing the massive deal that Fox received from San Antonio. So question number 1 is Fox's new contract actually an overpay? Well, in a vacuum, $229 million for a non-elite guard might seem too much, but putting things into perspective, the Spurs are actually uniquely positioned to manage one inflated contract, and within the context of their timeline, I think it actually does make sense. But even in the broader context of NBA contracts, it's actually worth noting that De'Aaron Fox is a good player. There's a lot of talk going around about Fox not even being a top 10 point guard right now, which is definitely debatable, but personally, I would argue that there are actually no more than 6 current point guards who you can definitely rank above Fox in the positional ladder, and those are Shai, Luka, Steph Curry, Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Halliburton, and James Harden. Then just right below those players, I think you have that next tier of point guards where Fox belongs, which is where you could also find Trae Young, Ja Morant, Darius Garland, and Tyrese Maxey. And for context, I'm leaving Damian Lillard out of the conversation because of the uniqueness of his situation with how he was waived by Milwaukee and how he was signed by Portland. Either way, the bottom line is, you could rank these point guards the way you want them, but all of these players who belong in this second tier, including Fox, are all signed to max contracts. And notably, the max value of Fox's latest extension has roughly the same max value with Ja Morant and Darius Garland's current contracts. The only difference is, compared to the other players who were signed for 5 years, Fox's deal only runs for 4 years, which makes his annual value considerably higher. The thing is, Trae Young is now also eligible for his own extension, while Garland and Morant are also eligible to sign their own extensions next summer. And you can definitely bet that they would all be using Fox's new contract as a baseline for negotiations. Bottom line is, all of these point guards in the second year appear to be roughly equal players who are also being paid nearly the same amount. So maybe De'Aaron Fox isn't actually overpaid like a lot of people think, especially when you consider the fact that his contract will also be coming off the books at a specifically crucial point in San Antonio's timeline. Which brings us to the next question: how does Fox's extension actually impact the Spurs' future cap situation? Again, De'Aaron Fox is expensive, but the Spurs can definitely afford paying him given the clean state of the team's cap sheet. Well, the thing is, if the Spurs were already tied to another max contract, then adding Fox as a co-star for Wembanyama wouldn't have been possible. But that's not the case, because aside from Fox, Devin Vassell is the only other player in the Spurs roster who will make more than $19 million this upcoming season. And even with Wembanyama's own max extension kicking in a couple years, the Spurs are actually primed to stay well below the tax line by then. Looking at it, Fox's new deal kicks in by 2026 to 2027, while Wemby's new deal kicks in by 2027 to 2028, and that gives the Spurs 2 full years before a potential third max contract which belongs to Stephon would actually kick in by 2028 to 2029. And that 2-year bridge is when the Spurs are actually expected to transition from being a borderline playoff team to potentially being an actual contending team. That period before 2028 allows the young core of Wembanyama, Castle, and Dylan Harper to actually play high-stakes playoff basketball together while they're all still in the initial stages of their careers, alongside a veteran star-caliber guard in De'Aaron Fox without the team having to break the bank. But even though De'Aaron Fox's new deal wouldn't necessarily cripple the Spurs cap sheet, to pay out a contract of that magnitude means the Spurs front office is confident that Fox can really be an effective co-star next to Wembanyama. But does Wembanyama and Fox actually fit together on the floor? Well, the thing is, the Spurs barely got to see the Fox and Wemby tandem together last season. With Wembanyama's shoulder injury and with Fox's own fractured finger, the tandem was only limited to spending 112 non-garbage time minutes on the floor across 5 games last season, with San Antonio sporting a minus 4.4 net rating during those minutes. Well, the sample size is far too small and the film is far too limited to draw conclusions, but there are actual theoretical indications that paint a positive outlook for Wemby and Fox long term. Well, first off, at this point of his career, De'Aaron Fox does most of his damage in the mid-range, as last season, he took 8 shots per game from that area while producing a solid 47% shooting clip. Though despite an effective mid-range game, Fox has never really been a consistent outside shooter. Last season, he only shot 31% from deep on just 8.2 attempts per 100 possessions. Overall, that poor efficiency and average volume has dragged down Fox's value in terms of floor spacing. Even during the season prior, when he shot 37% from deep in Sacramento, his outside shot hasn't been that threatening because of the fact that his downhill attacking volume has actually consistently dipped throughout the years. Looking at it, back in 2020, 31% of Fox's shot attempts came at the rim, but those numbers have dipped to just 13 and 15% the past 2 seasons. Good thing is, despite a potential decline in Fox's effectivity as an on-ball attacker, Fox is still a quick cutter who knows how to move without the ball. In fact, last season, a career-high 41.4% of his made shots at the rim were actually assisted, meaning Fox could still complement Wembanyama, whose passing ability actually ranks ahead of most NBA bigs. Last season, Wembanyama's potential assists and rim assists per 100 possessions, together with his on-ball rate, all ranked at least in the 91st percentile among all centers. Wembanyama has above-average vision for a big and has been making solid passes to cutting teammates while operating as a dribble handoff hub in the elbows. But then, Fox is still the best operating with the ball in his hand, especially in the pick and roll. In Sacramento, he mostly played with Domantas Sabonis, a center who rolled to the rim much less than other bigs. Wembanyama, on the other hand, at 7'4", is a dynamic vertical lob threat with an all-time great catch radius. Fox isn't an elite playmaker, but is still skilled enough to make precise passing reads to his bigs, and has still got speed and dynamic scoring that he can use to punish drop coverages. Last season, Fox actually ranked in the 85th percentile in terms of scoring and in the 93rd percentile in terms of volume among all pick-and-roll ball handlers in the NBA. That kind of production and volume should be enough to open up more easy scoring looks for Wembanyama out of ball screen actions. Overall, Fox has been running elite offensive units in Sacramento the past few seasons, so there's no reason to believe he can't do better with a running mate like Victor Wembanyama, especially as the Spurs roster rounds out the next couple seasons. Fox also complements the Spurs defense, as his quick hands and disruptive instincts allows him to take advantage of the lockdown capabilities of Stephon Castle and the fact that Wembanyama is just arguably the most game-changing defender in basketball today. The only problem is, outside of Fox, Stephon Castle and Dylan Harper are also both pick-and-roll centric guards who both also appear to have the ceilings of a primary playmaker next to Wembanyama. So another question is, will De'Aaron Fox actually be traded before the end of his contract? Well, the answer to that is we don't know yet, but it is highly probable, if only it happens down the line, especially when Fox is already on an expiring contract by the 2029 to 2030 season, which is also coincidentally when Dylan Harper's own potential rookie max extension is due to kick in, which at that point, the Spurs could already be in position to follow the OKC Thunder's blueprint with 3 young players on max contracts in Wemby, Castle, and Harper who have all grown by winning together. But for sure, San Antonio trading De'Aaron Fox will still depend on a couple factors, beginning with the development of Stephon Castle and specifically Dylan Harper, who will be the Spurs' long-term point guard if all goes according to plan. And if Harper actually trends the right way, say during the first couple years of his NBA career, I think the Spurs could look to trade Fox earlier in the life of his contract. But that is, if there are any teams willing to take on his massive deal, because for sure, matching De'Aaron Fox's salary in a trade could be very difficult. But again, even if De'Aaron Fox stays in San Antonio for the full life of his contract, the Spurs are still set up to stay well below the second apron tax line even up until the 2029 season at worst. But I'm still definitely guessing that one of Fox, Castle, and even Dylan Harper will have to be traded by 2028 because it's just going to be impossible for San Antonio to have all three of them on max contracts in the long term when they already have Wembanyama on a max deal as early as 2027. Nonetheless, in the short term, De'Aaron Fox's new contract signals stability for San Antonio. The Spurs are poised to run out a guard trio of Fox, Castle, and Harper next to Wembanyama next season, and while that might raise concerns about touches and floor spacing, there's no question that this team now has the depth and the upside to compete for a playoff spot, especially after the offseason acquisitions of veteran bigs Luke Kornet and Kelly Olynyk. Just how significant of a leap this team makes, though, still depends primarily on Victor Wembanyama, who could well be primed for MVP consideration in just his third NBA season. Just how huge of a leap Wembanyama takes, though, could also depend a lot on De'Aaron Fox, who is the kind of offensive engine who could make Wemby's life a lot easier and who could give San Antonio the sort of inside-out 1-2 punch that makes the rest of their opponents' lives much more difficult. But the biggest question is, can the De'Aaron Fox and Victor Wembanyama era lead to a championship in San Antonio? Feel free to drop your thoughts in the comment section below, and again, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing as well. Again, this has been Real Balls, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.